It's 3:20 in the morning. And it's been almost 3 days, 2.5 days, almost 3 days since I did a video. So I figure let's do a video. And what better subject to talk about than Pride Month, the month of June. But first of all, let me say to urge each and every one of you to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, so you're kept up with hard hitting social democratic commentary by yours truly, American Social Democracy. Now, as I was saying, happy Pride Month. June is that time of year set aside to recognize, basically to recognize why it's important for the LGBTQ community to have equality. And the answer is very simple. They're human beings. Straight people are human beings. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer people are also human beings. And human beings deserve equal rights, regardless of their sexual orientation, regardless of their race, regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of their religion, regardless of their political beliefs. If you are born into this world, you are entitled to equality before the law in all civil societies, as far as I'm concerned. And the thing about it is, some people are bothered by this whole thing called Pride Month, and that the some corporations have gotten on board. So you go to some places and you see rainbow flags or things with that reminds people of basically, the movement itself. And I remember hearing over the years people be like, well, nobody will go and be messing with them if they don't go and announce themselves. Here's the problem with that argument. For many years, centuries, a millennial, people have kept that to themselves. They have kept it to themselves. And once they were outed or accidentally found out, they weren't exactly treated with tolerance and kindness and with mercy. Far from it. At best, they were scorned and ostracized. At worst, they were freaking killed. And that's not hyperbole. That's the damn truth. And here in the West, you could make an argument it was that way until recently. So, out of oppression, a community will take oppression to such a point where they would decide they're not going to take it anymore. And so, it took years, it took decades, and they had some setbacks, but they had a lot of gains too. And it's amazing how the argument changes by critics, because the whole idea of somebody LGBTQ people existing was considered an abomination to people. That the fact that they dare exist. And I'm so sorry for this thing going on right now in the background. Please do forgive me. Hold on. Okay. Hopefully we won't hear any more of the bells ringing in the background. We may. Where was I thinking? Or where was my thought? The fact that there were some setbacks. And so whenever gains were made and society realizes that it was kind of just not nice, it was something to be ashamed of how society treated basically 10% of the population collectively when you think of the LGBTQ community, how they were treated. And because it started to look very ass backwards and very just worse than just fuddy-duddy. When you really look like a nut for advocating that a whole group of people are not entitled to equality under the law, then they self-reflect and they change their tactics. And so the new tactic now is special rights. Be wary when you hear the critics will say, "Well, I don't have a problem with equality. I'm opposed to special rights." Newsflash: when they say special rights, they really do mean equality. And equality, I'm sorry to say, no, I'm not sorry to say, equality is not a special right. So there you have it. I mean, and it's a no-brainer. Just as the movement for African Americans, their civil rights, well, it became a no-brainer. You don't go and deny African Americans civil rights. When it comes to the situation in Germany with the Jews, 6 million Jews died. Well, okay, killing somebody because they're Jewish, practice the religion of Judaism, or part of the ethnicity of Judaism is just as much an evil as killing or discriminating against somebody because they're black or because they're gay or what have you. Doesn't matter. Equality is equality, and equality is not a special right. So now that that's been settled, I'm going to get very partisan right now for a moment. As a democratic socialist, I take pride that the major roles that they play in the liberation of the LGBTQ community. In America in 1980, David McReynolds ran as the Socialist Party USA candidate for president, a well-noted peace activist. He died in 2018. He was like 88 years old. He was the first out of the closet homosexual to run for the presidency of the United States. Well, Ronald Reagan won that year. I know, sad. But the thing is that David McReynolds was the first presidential candidate in American history to campaign, and he was gay. He didn't like openly scream it to the world. You just knew he was gay because it was well known that he was. So the thing about it is that by the late 1980s, after the AIDS pandemic caused a lot of hysteria in America and around the world for that matter, people were you saw a rise of intolerance with the religious right, the Christian right, and everything they could do to go and discriminate against homosexuals, they were for. You even had pastors calling for the death penalty. So I mean, and eventually, I think a lot of Americans realized that this was just uncalled for. Uncalled for, just like a lot of the chatting here on the side of a lot of ignorant people who are trying to get me upset. And I will not be upset. I see ignorance being displayed with a little chat on the side. Folks, you make my case when you do stuff like that. But anyway, I remember when I was in college, I remember the subject come along about homosexuals, lesbians. Oh, I don't care if somebody's gay. And people be looking at you like, what are you, some kind of a liberal weirdo? It went from that to the point where by the 1990s, a lot of people, and we're talking about, what are you talking about? Like, I hate the stereotype, but we're talking about maybe some wealthy conservative women who had hairdressers or an interior decorator that they thought the world of, and they were thinking, I feel like shit for thinking so badly of these people, they're okay. And I think that that's what happened. And I think that in the conservative movement, libertarianism has been a godsend, because libertarianism, whether they actually hate gays or not, there is a principle of non-aggression that they have in their ideology. And so even if they think it's icky or what have you, they are going to be on principle, for the most part, being on the correct side, and on principle supporting LGBTQ equality. As I said, as a democratic socialist, I look with glee at societies, when places like Spain, Portugal, Belgium, Holland, societies that are known to have social democratic governments, and they push the envelope for marital equality. And slowly, the West, by the early 21st century, started to catch up and decided that, hey, LGBTQ people have a right to marry. And so by 2015, the United States caught up. I mean, now prior to 2015, there were a handful of states that were all of a sudden getting very tolerant. And I'll even give capitalism a little bit of credit for it, because you have people who run the tourist industry and run, things like, catering services and what have you. And they got a buck to make, and they realized that they can make a quick buck, out of catering to a new group, finding a need and filling it. So I'm going to give the capitalists, progressive capitalists, or people who are just who may not even care about the issue one way or the other. All what they want to do is make a quick buck. I'll give them credit for that as well. Now, equality for the LGBTQ community is equality for everyone. And that, I mean, it's a no-brainer. And the sooner society realizes that a whole group of people deserve equality under the law, the better things are going to be. I mean, not that long ago, people thought the idea of interracial marriages was an abomination. And now nobody gives a second thought. I'll give you my example. I'm half Hispanic. I don't look at my mother's Puerto Rican, my dad's American. I remember growing up in the 1970s here in North Carolina, when gone out somewhere. Well, people used to look at my parents like, "Oh, how odd! Look at that." White folks, African American folks alike, thought, "What in the world was going on?" But the thing about it is that people got over it. By the 1980s, it became no big deal. And I'm glad that it's no longer a big deal when it comes to things like interracial dating, interracial marriages, that sort of thing. And one day, hopefully in the next, maybe in the next 20 years, that it will no longer be a big deal, but for 90% of the population, 95% of the population, in the same way that maybe about 95% of the population don't have a problem with interracial dating and interracial marriages. So that's my spiel. That's my say. And to the LGBTQ community, you have a heterosexual straight supporter, power to the movement, and hope the equality is achieved. If you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you were bothered by this commentary, comment anyway. I'm sure we'll get a lot of comments. We'll have a conversation, perhaps. Feel free to share the content on this channel. And as a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it, because we're all the muckrakers of our time. Feel free to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're kept up to date. with hard-hitting social democratic commentary. And until next time, I am American Social Democracy. Class struggle yesterday, class struggle today, class struggle tomorrow, and class struggle until full economic and social justice is achieved for all. And that includes LGBTQ equality.